So, hello everyone. I'm really delighted to be here. Thanks, Angelica, for inviting me to do this lunch and learn. And I'm here to talk to this kind of signature talk, which is the no guilt solution to managing it all. I'll tell you a little bit about how that all came about, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my background for those of you who don't know me. I normally present this to a majority of the audience is normally a majority of women. I see there's quite a few gentlemen on this caller today, which I am actually really happy about. It's lovely to have a bit of a mix. The things I talk about when I talk about overwhelm and kind of taking charge of your own life and making mindful decisions about what you take on and what you don't take on, that's obviously not not gender specific. It's these are tips and tricks that can be used for everybody. Some of the examples I use and some of the images are do speak very much to women trying to manage it all and juggle all the balls. And I'd be really curious and interested to see how the men in the audience are resonating with these, or even what impact it have on you to see these things and the examples I use about managing it all, juggling all the balls, trying to make the everyday life go around and still have some time to yourself in the middle of everything. And the whole no guilt solution is based on action, really, to do something about your own situation and the things that we're struggling with in life, so that we can get to a place where life is never going to be easy per se, right? There's always going to be stuff happening, and we're always going to have stuff thrown at us. But my aim is to get everyone to a place where it doesn't feel like this constant struggle, that you're always chasing your tail, that you can live your life with a bit more ease. And and live it doing the things that we want to do, rather than meeting some sort of standard that's been maybe imposed on us from family or society, or like they say that we should, those kind of things. If you ever use the word they and should in the one sentence, you might want to kind of question a little bit who they are and why you need to listen to them. Okay, because and should as well is normally a big red flag when it comes to how we want to live our lives. So because I work with mindset, I'm going to put on a couple of caveats that I always do with my talks, because especially because I talk a lot about women and overwhelm, and women taking on. Actually bring up my favorite picture, and there's no men in this picture, sorry lads, but I'd like to see, and you can use the chat box here, if any of you resonate with any of these women. It's normally a bit of a rhetorical question, because most people do. Nobody here so far, in which case okay, let's see. Okay, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, my goal is to actually get to a point where I present this and people go, no, this is not my life at all, and why is she taking on all those things? I'm just going to check a comment column. Yeah. Okay, super column. Yes, you know what I'm talking about then. So yeah. It's not necessarily, although it tends to resonate a lot with women, it is clearly not, there isn't a split down the middle necessarily. So hopefully you can take some of my tips here too. So yeah, and actually it's funny, the steering wheel there, for a while there, I was kind of going, that's not really that applicable right now, because there is no soccer practice and we aren't really driving anywhere. But that's back with a bang now too. So I've spoken to a lot of people, and I actually I'm just finishing an article for one of the papers about this too, that suddenly our afternoons are just gone. ferrying kids to soccer and hockey and whatever else is going on. So this is very often, we can resonate with this. Now, the caveat I'm making, right, is that, the issues that are facing, I say families, okay, families today, and it's not necessarily a mindset issue per se. It's not, they're not down to, your confidence levels or your negotiation skills or your ability to fit self-care into your agenda, all of those things that we tend to get sent on courses to learn how to do. There are really deep set systemic issues here around, childcare, family-friendly policies, the fact that when Helen McEntee, the Justice Minister, was going on maternity leave, there was no provision for her to do that, because no minister had ever given birth before, and that says a lot, So there are, I don't want this to be another thing to put on your shoulders, that you have to fix this on top of fixing everything else, okay? There's nothing wrong with you. So we need to keep fighting to get a better balance in business, a better balance in politics, more, better childcare provisions, make it easier to take sick days or to take leave when your kids are sick, all those little things that are now just weighing you down, and which are leading to, especially a lot of women, leaving the workforce, because it's just not possible to have to run a family and work full time, or to have ambitions about getting somewhere in life, not in life, but in work. I speak to loads of women who decide not to go for promotions, for instance, because they don't want the extra workload, and that's not right. So we need to keep going with that. That's not something that should be on your shoulders too. Okay, but mindset does matter quite a lot, because the way we feel about ourselves, the way we prioritize, it really does matter. And we owe it to ourselves to, despite the circumstances, and while we wait for this better balance, and while we wait for better policies, to really kind of set ourselves up for success. And I know that sounds like a bit of a cliche, be a success in your own life, but it's true though. We do deserve really to live our lives with more ease. We only have the one life, and we can't be wishing away decades of our life for a time when things suddenly are supposed to just magically become easier. When I used to do this all the time. So, when my kids get older, when only they get to the next, year in school, when this happened, when work gets quieter, when, and it never, it never seems to happen. The time just gets filled up with something else. So you need to take some direction here, and really challenge yourself, because it does involve a challenge, okay? And it's not always easy, because we do need to challenge our perceptions of what our lives need to look like, what being a parent looks like, what being, a successful manager looks like, and also challenge the perception that we need to take everything on, that we need to do all those things, okay? And I'm going to talk about balance, and balance can mean a lot of different things to all of us, okay? And I think that's really important, because this isn't a one-size-fits-all exercise. What brings you joy and energy might be my worst nightmare, and I would never in a million years do that, even if you paid me. But if it's for you, if it adds value to your life, great, do more of it. I'll talk about resilience building and dealing with overwhelm, and give some tips about how you can actually look after yourself when there doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day to do so. Now, I will stick with the women for a little bit longer, because the figures do kind of back this up. This is pre-pandemic figures, that before COVID, women spent about 3 times as many hours. This is global average, right? But there isn't actually that much difference between some of the regions. It's a little bit higher and lower and so, but on average globally, I think Ireland might actually be on the higher side, spend as much 3 times doing domestic and unpaid care work as men. And we know that during COVID that increased. There was a survey from National Women's Council of Ireland where 85% of the women said their caring responsibilities had increased since the virus, and 55% said they had less time for their mental health. Now, again, this goes across, I'm sure, the male responsibilities have gone up too. Mental health is a concern for all of us, but there was another study from Maynooth University who looked at homeschooling, and in 65% of the families surveyed, women took on full responsibility for getting the homeschooling done. And we know that very often it's the thing that gives. It's the thing that gets reshuffled. It's the less important thing. So love to hear from the men on this too, if any of what I say either resonates with you, or you go, hang on, is that really the case? So we can have the discussion there. But yeah, so it is kind of it is stressful, and this is a bit of a bleak slide, but it does actually it does do that. It is really, really tough, and I again speak with so many women on a daily basis who are just there stressed out of their minds really, and they're going back to, a couple of people now are going back to work after having been at home. The maternity leaves this year has probably not really been, what people ordered. So it's not that you necessarily got what you needed during that time, and now you're going back into work, and how's it all going to be really worked out, So I'll move away from this bleak slide and we'll move on to something, well, actually, I'm going to say a bit more positive. This is me, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. You can probably tell I'm originally from Norway, but I moved to Ireland in the 1990s to go to college, and I never left. And this is me here with my 3 kids, and they're a bit older now than they were in those pictures. But the reason I share them is that because here I am completely and utterly burnt out in those pictures. It's all very happy and sunshining, and that was true too, because more than one thing can be true. But they're taken around 2016, 2017, and I went through some really, really tough years. At that time, I had all 5 life stressors happen to me in the space of 2 years, and I moved jobs, I moved house twice, I moved counties actually as well, which I moved from Dublin to Cork. Great move. But I had a baby, my son Fionn, who's top left there. He's now 7, so it's been a while. But I separated from my partner, and my mother got diagnosed with terminal cancer around that same time, and she was in a different country, so I was traveling back and forth. And now I took some leave of work around then to just cope with it all. But at some point I had to go back, and I was working full time and it was just intense. And I think the reason I tell this story is because all through that time I just kept going, and I thought well, first of all, I felt I have no choice. You just have to keep going. Second of all, I kind of thought I was in control, and I thought I was doing a pretty good job of managing it all. Like I actually kept, I was batch cooking at the weekends. I was organizing birthday parties. I had like childminders and au pairs lined up, family and friends helping out. And I actually even thought I was doing so well that I took on more work. We did a big reorg in work, and I kind of went, yeah, I'll take on 2 teams because, it's, I'd be the best person for it, and I can totally do this. And so I just kept on going, and I had that thing, it will get better, it will get better, I'll get through this. And I didn't, because it wasn't possible. Like at some point it just had to all give, and I hit the wall big time, and I suffered a burnout that it took me the better part of a year to recover from. And now out of that, my coaching practice and the no guilt solution to managing it all was born. So it's worked out quite well in the end. And I do believe that everything in life, there's a gift in everything if you just if you just look for it. But I don't recommend letting it go to this point before you start looking for those gifts, because it's really, really tough, and it's not that worth it. Doesn't really matter, because it wasn't by choice, and I'm here now. But it's this is why I do what I do. I want to help people before they get to this point, because you can't just keep going. And what I realized in that year was that something had to change. It really had to change, but a lot more was within my power to do something about than I perhaps thought, because the life stressors probably weren't. Life will throw stuff at you, but my own actions and my own feelings and my thoughts and behaviors, they were not. And I was looking at some of the things that I would do that went back years, like this tendency to maybe take on too much, overcommit, overcompensate maybe for others that I felt weren't maybe pulling their weight, whatever it was. Instead of maybe looking at everything that went on in my life going, yeah, now is not the time to also do this, So those things. So I kind of stepped out of that autopilot where you just get on with it and feel that you've no choice. And I started making what I call mindful decisions about what I do and what I take on. And that means really looking at what you do and really looking at why you do it. Sometimes the reasons why aren't as obvious as you think. They're linked into your values and your expectations and other people's expectations of you. It's not easy work, this, okay? But it's so valuable when you do it. And then when you look at all these things, and then you can weigh up going, well, actually, I will do this, or I won't do that. Or I have no choice actually in this case, because, whatever it is, I can't leave my job because X, or I can't do this because Y. But as long as you know that that is a decision that you've made and not just something that you've passively accepted because it just has to be like that. And that's where the no guilt comes into the no guilt solution, by the way, because you've a lot less there's a lot less risk of you feeling guilty for things if you've actually made a conscious decision whether you've done it or not. The guilt kind of comes in where you just step back and going, well, it's just this, like that. I'll talk a little bit more about guilt later. So I tend to differentiate about between having it all and doing it all. Maybe this is, you could argue it's just semantics, but it isn't, because having it all is having what you want from life. That's the it. You get to define the it. Having it all is really looking carefully at what your goals are, what your own ambitions are, what you want for yourself and your family, and then putting steps in place to get to that point, and get to that place where you can have them. And whereas doing it all for me is just that manic spinning of the plates, no direction other than trying to get through the day or the week, and hoping that everyone has clean clothes by Monday. It's that kind of thing where it's like, you're just for hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it. It's the doing it all. It's directionless. So again, I'm gonna bring that caveat in. Angelica, feel free to jump in if people are putting stuff in the chat. But
we do have some comments in the chat box.
Yeah.
Colin was just saying that well, he said that listening to you, he feels very lucky to be part of a couple, and he was saying that so he said it's probably true, even though I do a lot during the week, I know my wife doesn't trust me to do some things to her standards, so she does them at the weekend. But that cuts both ways, and I wouldn't trust to do some things in the garden as well as I do. It's about playing to your strengths. The problem arises if one member of the partnership is burnt out while watching the other, while the other is sitting watching TV. Equal balance is key. And Rachel said, that sounds like her life, what you just described.
Yes. And actually, we have a comment there about single parenting, and there's pros and cons, right? Because at least you're not annoyed at another person not doing it. You just have to do it all. So it's again, it's not necessarily a life goal, but I know for a fact that there are annoyances that people I know who are in a relationship, now they're not quite getting ready to boot the partner out the door, but that kind of yeah, he just doesn't see what needs to be done, or she never cuts the grass. Those kind of things there. That level of annoyance is kind of gone when it's up to you. You have more autonomy in one way when you decide what um, um, needs to be done or not. So pros and cons for sure. But yeah, it's I do find a lot of the time though that the discussions around balance in the home and who takes on what is very much geared towards couples, and the solution is very often get your partner to do more. For some people that isn't an option, so it's a useful thing to remember, I think. But and I'm going to say here again, with the mindset thing, I do talk about making decisions to do stuff or not. If the structures work against you, that is really hard. If you have really personal ambitions and want to go far in work, but then suddenly your kids are home from school for 6 months like they were last year, and you could do what I do and not homeschool them at all, which is a choice I made last year, because it just really wasn't worth the effort. They were learning nothing, and all it did was cause stress. And I instead I tried to do other things like that I enjoyed more, like baking with them or going for walks and things. And I think for me that was a very conscious decision, because I knew I didn't have to do the homeschooling. Do you know what I mean? And I had so many of my friends there going, "Oh no, but we have to go through all these sheets, and they'll fall behind if I don't." And again, some people felt it was helpful because you had more of a structure on the day. In which case, by all means, do it. But it's this. I think the pressure we put ourselves under for homeschooling was just insane. Now, having said that, it was also an insane situation to have your kids at home all day. So, but it's about that, not just accepting that because it's there that it has to be done. Now, this year I did more because the structures were better. My kids were more motivated. My eldest was in first year in secondary, and he was really he was on his Zoom calls and he was doing his work. I didn't even see him but my younger ones were a little bit harder, and it was just about if you again, we're going to do some big picture work later. If you look at how did I want my kids to be at the end of this, not stressed, calm, feeling safe and reassured that things were okay. I certainly didn't want them to and me to be totally stressed out with me going, just write it down. Just do that math sheet. So again, finding what works. Okay. So we're going to do, what time is it? I tend to get yeah, we're going to do a little exercise, and anyone who's been to any of my talks before will know this one. It's just a breathing exercise, very short, right? Very simple, but so impactful. And I tell my clients, I always do it as part of my talks and workshops, and I tell my clients to set your alarm on your phone every couple of hours, a reminder to just do this. It's anyone who's done any yoga or mindfulness or meditation or whatever, or other stuff might be familiar with the power of the breath, but it is really useful. And I think you've been sitting down now listening to me for almost half an hour, so we're going to take a little bit, get some energy back into the virtual room. So we're going to take three deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And we're going to do it again. And the last one. Okay. How did that feel? Feel free to drop a comment in the chat. I'll tell you how it makes me feel every time I do it. I just love it because I find it slows me down. I find my energy changes calmer. Yeah, it's calmer. I normally, like when I do it as part of a presentation, I'm, firing away. I have a lot of, going full speed, love what I do and the talk, but it's like a little reset button. It kind of makes me go, okay, it brings oxygen to the brain, so it kind of de-stresses you somewhat. It's almost like it makes me look around a bit more. I can see more things, and it certainly distresses you. So it's such a little thing to do, but if you can fit that into your day every now and then, just to remember to do it, because we clearly don't forget to breathe, but we do forget to pause. So I think that pause is something that we can it serves us to bring it back into our life. I have somebody who went to one of my workshops, and she actually ordered the print of that the breathe photo, and she has it on her desk now just to remind her. So I think, sorry, sometimes this doesn't, oh yeah, no, full speed. Okay. We're going to do a little exercise. I sometimes just talk about this and sometimes we actually do it. I think for this one, we might do it just for a bit of fun. You may not be prepared for it, but it's to find out what we want from life, to be able to make those decisions that I'm talking about, to decide whether you want to take something on or not. You need to kind of know where you're going. And that's the having it all. Okay, so your vision is your have it all. It's like, what is my life like if everything goes as well as it can, and I get what I really need and what I really desire in life. Okay, the best way to get there is to visualize it. Okay, and anyone who's done, again, work on this in the past, if you do sports, visualization is huge in sport. And it is for a reason, because your brain doesn't really differentiate between what you visualize and what you've actually done. The memory part and the forward looking thinking part, that they're quite close together or connected. So if you visualize something, you're almost halfway there to getting it. That's why you visualize high jumps or penalties shootouts, because the more you have thought it in your head, the easier it is for you to do it. It also opens up kind of your creative side. It taps into that side of you that sees possibilities and solutions, and once you have something in your head clear that this is where I want to get, you will start seeing things that will take you down that path more than if you just close off to it and just look straight ahead at you. So it's a really powerful exercise. I think we can take 3 minutes. I just want you to look ahead to a time in the future where if everything goes as well as it possibly can, what does your life look like? Now, leave it up to you how far ahead you want to go. It can be next week if you're really overwhelmed right now and you just need things to be easier already. Or it can be longer term thing, in 12 months' time. How do I want my life to look like? Or in 5 years. Now, we know that our ability to predict the future has got a bit of a knock this last year. So it's not really about being, we know that these plans might change. Okay. It's not about that. It's about tapping into what's important to you in your life. Okay. So I'm going to I'll set my timer, and it will take 3 minutes. You can write it down or just think or whatever it is. I'll start it now. Okay. All right, that was 3 minutes. So you don't need to share any of what you have come up with. It's I find sometimes it can be, I love doing this and I do it kind of regularly enough for different times, but sometimes there can be huge surprises in them. Sometimes I did one a while ago, like a 5-year thing, and I kind of went, oh, that's what I want. It's just something about letting those creative juices flow or whatever. Sorry. Um, Anyone else get surprised at what they wanted, or were you all pretty clear about where? Yeah, Fiona. Yeah, it's what, and you enjoyed those 3 minutes, says Fiona. Yeah, it's something we don't really take the time to do, is it? To really, again, pause. I think actually, if there's one if there's one thing to take away, but hopefully more, but like to pause in our lives and really just assess what we're doing. So, um, it's a good guide to where you are, okay, or to where you want to be, and really to what's important in your life, you know. And then the next thing, then, because it's great to have the vision, but really, what's going on at the moment though for you. So the next part of the, and this is part of my coaching program. We do this type of work in a much more thorough fashion, where we really spend time unwrapping what's going on for us in these things, and especially when it comes to our current reality. Yes, it is. I know, Jessica. That, yeah, it's making it all happen that feels overwhelming. Absolutely, and that's why this part of it is so important, and the rest of it, and really looking at the day-to-day work, all those things that get the obstacles, everything that comes in from left field that makes that vision just kind of float away in an air balloon or something like that. Yeah, I know. If it was just a question of doing a vision, we'd all be living it. And this is hard work. It really is. There's a lot of stuff that's ingrained in us that we've been doing for a long time, that we expect of ourselves, that other people expect of us, that that we need to make changes in, and change is hard. But if nothing changes either. So, now for the next part of this, we'll do another 3 minutes, and what I'd like you to do is to look at your current reality. Like, we don't have time for a deep dive here, but even if you pick like the 3 things that take up most of your time and energy right now, either on a day, or like in general in your life, and just write down or tell yourself what they are. If you have the time, if you also want to rate them, say on a scale from 1 to 10, in 2 things. One is how much of your time do those things take? And the second one is how much energy do they take? And they are not always the same thing, because something can take a lot of our time, but we actually love doing it. It really energizes us. It's one of those things that give back. We could do it all day, it wouldn't matter. Or it can be, a quick, simple task, but it just drains us, and we need recovery time after it almost. So if you can do that, so 3 things that you're currently spending, taking up a lot of your time and energy, and just rate them from 1 to 10, and how much. Okay, so I'll give us 3 minutes to do that too. All right, I'll bring you gently back in from your meanderings. So I don't know what is the case here, but very often when people do this exercise, there's very little overlap between that vision and what's currently taking up people's time. I don't know if that's the case here or not. I'd love for it not to be, but it's what very often happens. And that's kind of what Jessica was saying about, making the reality fit the vision is really where the work is. If anybody would like to share something, please feel free about gaps or sometimes people also go, I didn't even realize that was taking up so much of my time. I did this a while ago myself, and I think one thing that came up for me, and I'm sure people will relate to this, was cooking, because it was figuring out what was for dinner, that kind of cooking. And it was taking up so much of my time and energy, actually probably more energy than time. It wasn't that hard to cook dinner, but the energy I had to expend on figuring out what to cook. And Kieran is company here. Hello. It was really making my life very, very hard at the time. And I had to kind of realize that I had to be a little bit more lenient with myself when it comes to cooking. And that's really hard for me, because I love cooking. Food is really important to me. There's a lot of values involved in it. I have these visions of us sitting around the kitchen table, eating lovely home-cooked food, and then everyone cleaning up after themselves. But it just doesn't, right now in my life, it doesn't really work out that way. So I just have, and I realized then I had to start taking some shortcuts. And while we're not exactly having takeaway every night, there were a few things I just had to let go for now when it comes to cooking. And SuperValu do a really great homemade cottage pie for £6 that actually feeds my family. So, it's those kind of things, or like saying, cooking, Fiona, yes, absolutely. And Orla saying about working from home, doing one last thing. So the work, so easy. Or you leave the laptop on, and every time you pass, you just kind of check if there's something. Boundaries, guys, is a huge one. You really need to maybe work on some of those. It's really hard. Again, structural things come in here, depending on what your work environment is like and what your manager is like, if you have one, and what the overall culture is. Some of those things can be harder to adhere to than others. I used to have this thing where I would leave work, because I had to leave work, and I'd go, I'll be online later. For what? There was absolutely, work is funny, work is endless. You're never done with work. So unless you have a deadline or one project that you need to, that needs to be done by 5 o'clock and or by 9 a.m. and unless you work late, you're not physically going to get it done. That's different. But if that's your everyday thing, the one more thing, there's always going to be one more thing, So, and you'll never be on top of things. Even if you check all your emails on a Sunday, you're still going to have stuff there for the Monday. And maybe actually that part of the work should have been the emails that you're catching up on, So I have a whole other thing on workload, actually, that is a webinar in itself. But there's so many things in work. Less breaks, much shorter breaks than you're in the office. Because you're at home. Now this is where I kind of go, this is your action, okay? Because there needs to be a call to action. I always like to have really practical things in my talks. If you want, if you feel it's useful to you, pick one thing, make one change, okay? Because it has to be manageable. You're not going to make 10 changes. You know, you're not going to suddenly live your vision tomorrow. This isn't, you know, this is not joining the gym in January. You know, this is not starting a diet on Monday. This is picking one thing that right now would make your life easier if you either didn't do it or did it, depending on what it is. If that's setting your own finish time in work and sticking to it, or if it's finding quicker meals to cook, or do meal planning. Maybe meal planning. I love meal planning. I hate batch cooking because all it did for me was completely drain me at the weekends, and I would have been better off cooking during the week than to slave over the cooker. And I love cooking for 5 hours, prepping 5 different meals. I had my Pinterest board was full of, you know, slow cooker savers and all this. Did me no favors at all, you know, at that time in my life. So for me, cooking every day is actually easier, but I find meal planning takes a lot of that out of the work, you know, because then at least I don't have to stand in Aldi at 4 o'clock going, what will I get for dinner, you know? So whatever it is for you, but I'd like you to, with your vision in mind, pick the one thing that you think is manageable and that will take you closer to the vision, because that's the point of the vision. Your vision, the vision is your guiding star, like your compass. It's what will bring you, what will steer you towards making a decision. Again, so much work involved in this, okay? And when I do my coaching, we go through, there's a whole thing we go through about what those different stressors, and well, not stressors, but tangents that are pulling at you in your life, what they are, because some of them you can control, some of them you can't. And then it's the question of what you do with each of those, and which ones also, it's a bit of a cost benefit analysis too, like what costs you more to change and what costs you, you know, so it's not necessarily, like, it's not going to be done overnight is what I'm trying to say. But have a think about this. Sorry, just keeping an eye on the time. Yeah, 10 minutes. Make one change and see how that works out for you. And this is just a quote I like. Don't wait until the conditions are perfect to begin. I was doing that for a long time. You know, as I said, when my kids are older, I will. When this happens, I will. When it's all calmed down in work, I will. Okay, sometimes you are caught in the storm and you just need to wait for the storm to pass. Okay, that's not really what I'm talking about. It's when the storm becomes permanent and you realize, well, actually, I might need a bigger boat now, or stronger sails, or whatever. There's actually I use a sailboat metaphor that some of you might know in this, where you look at the various parts that you can help dealing with things, but you need to start. And once you start, that's what makes the beginnings perfect. You know, it's just taking that action to kind of control your own life. And again, if you've been to my talks before, Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks, for those of you who remember Twin Peaks, this might be a generational thing, but I loved Twin Peaks, and I watched it, and this just stuck with me. So Agent Cooper says, every day, once a day, give yourself a present. Don't plan it, don't wait for it, just let it happen. Could be a new shirt at the men's store, a catnap in your office chair, or 2 cups of good hot black coffee. And I just love it because these are small things. We can all do those things. What makes it valuable and makes it a gift is the intention behind it. It's you not just sitting down having a cup of coffee, or hiding in your bedroom for 5 minutes just to get a bit of peace. It's you saying to yourself, I'm giving myself this gift today. And that does something. Okay, it brings you something. It brings you a bit of calmness. It's like giving yourself a big hug. And it's manageable. It's only one thing, and it's every day. But it's probably one of my kind of life mantras to kind of do that to yourself. it's really manageable self-care. Okay, again, if your life is a complete chaotic mess and you need to make big changes, this isn't going to do it. Okay, I read somewhere that, you know, self-care isn't, you know, chocolate and hot, you know, salt baths or whatever. It's making the changes in your life that makes your life worth, that you don't have to escape from your life. So it's not, again, about that, but it needs to be, we need to have different tools in our toolbox, and this is a really easily accessible one. Okay. And then just finally, just piling stuff at you now, guys, but just a bit about guilt, because the reason I ended up with the no guilt solution to managing it all was that I found that so many, and again, these were women I was talking to, this guilt that we're feeling all the time. Guilt that we're not enough for, I don't know, other people. Guilt that we're not doing enough. Guilt that we're not cooking from scratch. Talking to somebody recently who was going back to work after 16 years of being at home, and part of her issue was that she felt guilty, that she felt that she'd taken the easy way out by not working instead of fighting up for equality in work or whatever. So, you know, like, we are, if it's possible to feel guilty about it, we will. Okay. I sometimes think I will write down everything I feel guilty about every single day. And it's anything from snoozing my alarm clock to taking too long in the shower to not starting work at 9 o'clock. Like, I don't listen to those voices anymore, but they're there. So, but the guilt kind of goes away, and I touched upon this earlier. The guilt goes away to some extent when you're making a conscious and mindful and intentional decision about what you're doing. The guilt is kind of, it's a bit, and I say this is with as much kindness and empathy as I can, guilt is a little bit indulgent because it stops you from making a decision. It kind of goes, well, I couldn't possibly do it because, you know, I feel too bad if I do. So I'm not even going to question those motives or those thoughts or anything like that. It's just, you know, my kids will feel too guilty. No, they don't feel guilty, actually. I will feel too guilty if I go back to work full time because, you know, it's not good for my kids. That isn't true necessarily, you know. What's the evidence for that? If you weigh up the pros and cons and cost of benefit of going back to work or not going back to work, it's just one example. You can land on whatever you want. You can make up your mind that actually I don't want to because it's easier for everybody if I don't. It does have a financial impact and it might impact my career progression, but that's the cost I'm willing to take. But it's not a given that you have to land on one or the other. It's an adult decision that you need to make in your life, is kind of what I'm saying, within the parameters of everything else that's going on that you can't control. Okay, but it's kind of like a get out of jail card sometimes for making decisions. So just be mindful of the guilt. And I think that's it, actually. We have 4 minutes left. I just put up a slide here now for these are some of my coaching offerings for those of you who are not familiar with my services. I do have a group program starting next week, actually, that there's still some spaces left for. It's a 6-week program where we go through what I've given you the bones of here today, okay, in a bit more detail. And I love groups because it's such a nice environment to work on, and people learn so much from each other in them. But I do one-to-one coaching as well, and if anyone works in an organization that might benefit from, I do more tailored to workplace talks too, just feel free to reach out, and you can get me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Just yeah, you'll find me. Okay. And thanks so much for coming to this. I really appreciate people tuning in. It's we're all a bit Zoom fatigued, I think, but it's nice to see that people are still engaging. And thanks for all your comments and feedback throughout. It's made it a really engaging and fun really hour to spend. And I'll take questions now too if you have any.
Hi Ingrid, I might just come in there quickly.
Yeah. Hi, Kieran.
Thanks very much for your presentation. I was just writing you a message there, but I mean, it's a very important message, and your candor, and I think your honesty, that you've been down that road, it speaks to so much of the work I'm involved in myself. I'm a coach and mentor as well, and
yeah,
it's that kind of sense of the stories we tell ourselves, and when you're in an environment that is very driven, and that's the culture, I just see it again and again. People begin to identify their individual value with what an organization kind of assigns to them.
Yeah.
And again, burnout. And it is something that I suppose we're quite active or quite focused on addressing and kind of pushing back on, really. If you could get an organization to build people up rather than tearing them down, and that sense of kind of failure and all of those shoulds. There's so much in it. I could be talking about it for the day, but I mean, our stories are very similar as well. But what I might do is maybe reach out to you and have a chat.
Yeah,
I think
I'd love to. Yeah,
there's a huge crossover there with a lot of what you're saying, and congratulations on all of your work. It's a tremendous story, and keep at it.
Thank you, and yeah, let's connect. I was going to say offline, but that doesn't.
Not possible. Cheers, Ingrid.
Yeah, and thanks, Kieran and Esrana. Yes, I do have. I can listen. I'll reach out. Yeah, I do have some stuff on on time management and boundaries. I don't do time management per se. There's loads of people who specialize in time management techniques and who probably do a better job at that than me. But I do have. I have something on boundaries, and I'll send you some stuff. And there's a webinar I did the week before last on workload and work, managing time in work. That I can send you the link to. It's on my website actually. So a few hints and tips there. And thanks, Fiona.
Thanks a million, Ingrid.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to so we'll include your LinkedIn in the follow-up email, and we'll also include a recording of this video as well. So if anyone wants to catch up, or if anyone wants to connect with Ingrid on LinkedIn, that'll make it nice and easy for you as well. And you can see her website and her email as well on the slide there. And thanks so much everyone for joining. So I'm just conscious it's 2:00 now. So unless you have any more questions.
I have to go and pick my son up from school now, so that's it. There's always something. But yeah.
Fab. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks everyone, and happy to chat to anyone after this or another time. So thank you.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
Bye.